The trade that the baseball world has been waiting to happen happened last night. Jeimer Candelario was shipped up to the Chicago Cubs, and in return, the Nationals got two relatively decent prospects. But did this Nationals team leave some room on the table there?
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed with our friends at Game Time. And thank you guys for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 as I give you all the latest Nationals details. And we're part of the Locked On podcast where you get your team every single day. Later on in today's program, today is the trade deadline day at 6 p.m. Eastern time. The Nationals have only made really one move so far, trading away Jeimer Candelario. Is there room for a little bit more? We'll discuss that a little bit later on as Lane Thomas and Kyle Finnegan, their names have been flying around. We'll discuss that later. Second segment here. We will break down the new Nationals prospects as they got two decent returns from Jeimer Candelario, DJ Herz, a left-handed pitcher, and as well as shortstop Kevin Made. Both are very intriguing, but they are also very raw. We'll discuss that and really break down those two guys in the second segment of today's show. Let's discuss the Jeimer Candelario trade. And first and foremost, for all the people out there, Jeimer Candelario was a slam dunk for Mike Rizzo this offseason. Let's get that out of the way real quick here. Jeimer Candelario, the entire purpose of signing him in this past offseason to a major league deal after struggling mightily with the Detroit Tigers of last season, it was for this to happen. He wanted to put himself in a situation to where he could play every day, which check he did with here in the Washington Nationals, where he could take a step up defensively, check mark, he did that, and as well as a switch batter, he did all of that and much, much more at the plate, improving his slugging numbers, getting back his doubles, his home runs, and even then, if you look at what he did at Comerica Park, I believe he capped at a 18 home run season there. He had 16 home runs this season for the Nationals, and that is in way less games, obviously, as it just turned August today. He's got another 2 months to add on to that home run total, and I think Jeimer Candelario will probably end up around 25 home runs or so as this season goes on. Well, it was always the plan to trade away Jeimer Candelario. This Nationals team, this is kind of the moves that the Nationals will be making even going into this offseason. And that is what the smart teams do, by the way. When you trade and when you sign someone of his caliber, someone who's been at the top of the third base market, someone who has led the major leagues in doubles, someone who has always been a big power guy as well, switch hitting bat, someone who's had decent seasons over at third base. This is what the Nationals hope for all along, and that's what Mike Rizzo just did. Signing him to a 1-year, $5 million deal this past offseason, hand up, I was livid about it. I was not up for this because I would have rather gone for someone like a Cody Bellinger, who, oh, by the way, is pretty much back to form, it seems like, with the Cubs. He's been killing the baseball and just had one of the best months of his career here in July. I wanted to go the little bit of a splashier route, but now we see as to why I'm not the GM on the Washington Nationals and Mike Rizzo is. So when you go into this trade deadline, we all know that Jeimer Candelario is going to be on the move. But the big question was, if he's the best position player available, if he is the best third baseman available, what kind of prospect could the Nationals get in return? And a lot of people kind of said, well, you could get a top 100 guy if the market dictates that way. I always kind of thought that was an outside chance. In fact, I'm pretty positive it was an outside chance no matter what you looked at. But even then, over the last few days, the rumors were that there were 8 teams on Jeimer Candelario. When there are that many teams in on someone like that who's just a rental guy, you kind of think of guys who could give up a top 100 prospects. And it's not going to be anyone who's a crazy big name. It would probably be someone who has struggled and who has fallen down the top 100 rankings. But all that hype kind of gave everyone this expectation that we would be getting a little bit more, including myself. I kind of bought into it, and I'm a fool for that, to be honest with you. I kind of bought in to the hype that Jeimer Candelario was going to get back in return a top 10 prospect from an organization, someone who you could potentially rely on to be a pretty good prospect down the road for this Nationals team. But they did go a different route. And Mike Rizzo, in my mind, he took the best offer available. And I'm not the one here to say if the Mets were offering whatever prospect in return for Jeimer Candelario or the Marlins or any NL East team, I would have been fine with trading him to either of those teams. He's a rental. This is not Juan Soto. I would have not done that with Soto, by the way, but that's a different story. When you have a rental player with Candelario only on a $5 million deal, the money doesn't really matter in this situation. There's no salary cap in Major League Baseball. But when you talk about the return and really get your expectations up the way that a lot of Nationals fans, including myself, were over the last few days, you kind of talk yourself into getting that big flashy name. Or the Matt Mervis, someone who I threw around over on Twitter the other day from the Chicago Cubs. I believe the 6th prospect in their system. He was drafted by the Nationals out of high school. He hit 40 home runs in last year in AAA. This guy is a legit power bat. But the Cubs were never going to give that up. Because one, they saw the potential that he had down in AAA, and as well as what he has done in the major leagues this year. Now, while he has not been impactful whatsoever in the bigs, he's still doing well down in AAA, and he's still one of their brighter prospects. He was undrafted back in 2020, but now kind of looking back at that, it was foolish of me to think that we could even get him. He was just a name that was drafted by Mike Rizzo in this staff out of high school, ultimately didn't sign, went to college, and it worked out pretty well for him as he's one of the best prospects in the Cubs system. But what the Nationals did here was they took 2 talents with Kevin Made and DJ Herz. None of them are blown away prospects, someone who you could really say this guy is going to be a top prospect in the system someday. DJ Herz is 22 years old and Kevin Made is 20. Now, while both their numbers are good and while they both have really strong attributes in their game, it's not all finished products. These are 2 kind of guys that the Nationals got in return that are lottery prospects, is what I call them. Not lottery draft prospects, not a top 15 pick in the first round, as DJ Herz was an 8th round pick out of high school back in 2019, but a little bit different than that. They're kind of like guys that you go in, you're at your 7-Eleven, you turn in your lottery ticket, and you just hope to God that they hit the numbers again, and you hit the Powerball. Now, the odds of these guys actually hitting are obviously much better than you winning the Powerball. But that's the kind of situation that Mike Rizzo has put himself in this scenario, in which some teams like the Padres or these analytical-minded teams that really do well in these sort of situations and they get the most out of their young prospects who have a lot of tools and who have a lot of potential, which both these guys do. But it does kind of get you a little worrisome when you're considering what this Nationals team and this Nationals development staff has done over the years with guys like this. It ultimately hasn't really panned out as much. You look at Seth Romero, a first-round pick back in the 2010s out of the University of Houston. Obviously, he was hindered by all his off-field issues, but even then, his upside was still very high. And in his limited pitching innings with the Nationals up in the majors and as well down in the minors, it really wasn't that good. He was a big toolsy guy, someone who had a lot of potential in the world, but it just never panned out. And a lot of people have always said, well, if it's the drafting or is it the development of these guys? I more so think it's the development of these guys. They found a way to find talent through the draft. They found a ton of talent through the draft, but it's a matter of developing these guys and getting all those tools in all their ducks in a row into developing all those key prospects. So with the Nationals and what they got in return, do I think they left something on the table? Do I think they left a better prospect load on the table? Or even if they just went in for one prospect instead of two kind of lottery guys, could they have gotten someone a little bit better? Well, with the second route, I think they could have gotten one prospect in total that would have been better than both of these guys. But again, you now get two cracks at this thing with prospects like Kevin Made and DJ Herz. You get two opportunities to form guys who, one, could be a solid left-handed starter, and at worst, could be a good bullpen option in later innings. And then Kevin Made, kind of someone who I threw out yesterday as a Wilmer Defoe on steroids, someone who's going to be a super utility guy who can play plus defense at basically any position in the infield, including shortstop, second base, and third base. But his big issue is that he has not been productive at the plate. He has not been productive actually whatsoever at the plate. So now let's get into both of those guys, as DJ Herz and Kevin Made have lined up to be the Nationals' decent-sized prospects now, as Kevin Made is the number 16 prospect in the system, and DJ Herz is the number 17 prospect in the system. But those are going to be updated soon, and I think Herz is going to jump Kevin Made. But let's break down those two players. But before we do that, I got to tell you guys about our friends over at Game Time. And guys, buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guaranteed, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hype for the fun that you'll have. There are flash deals and last-minute tickets, and easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. And in my opinion, my favorite part of Game Time is images of your seat views, because I go to Nationals Park a lot last minute, and I get to check out my tickets right then and there on my walk over to Nationals Park. I get to see my images of my seat view and see if there's any obstruction in the area. That is why I love Game Time. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now let's get back into it, as the Nationals traded away Jeimer Candelario to the Chicago Cubs, and what the Nationals got in return were two lottery type of prospects with Kevin Made and DJ Herz. So let's start off with Kevin Made here. This is a 20-year-old toolsy shortstop in which some scouts have even said he's got one of the higher ceilings in the Chicago Cubs system. Obviously, that Cubs system has been a little bit watered down as of recent, but it's not a bad system whatsoever. It's about middle of the pack, and in my opinion, a little bit above average. So when we traded for Kevin Made, the first thing I thought of was with him and what he does. Well, one thing sticks out to me in a big way. MLB Pipeline has him as a 65 arm grade, which is well above average, and a very good arm strength, and as well as a 60 over in the field. This guy is a good fielder. He sticks at shortstop, in my opinion, and someone who could be and probably will be your backup shortstop in a few years from now. But the whole question is, as I kind of said in that first segment, is what he can do at the plate, because that is where he has struggled throughout his career. He's batting .240 on the season so far in high A. He'll go to high A Wilmington as well here in Washington. He's got a .355 slug and a .328 on base percentage and a .683 OPS in 70 games this season. Now, I've talked about the struggles at the plate. Those aren't really great numbers. He hasn't batted over .250 since 2021, where he batted .270 in low A, and as well as rookie ball with the Chicago Cubs. He's only really hit 14 home runs through 222 games. Not a lot of power. This isn't someone who's going to come in and immediately help your offense, even in this system. But what he is going to do, he's going to play a very good shortstop. And even then, you could place him all around the infield, third base, second base. What's something I actually noticed about Kevin Made, though, that is good at the plate is his strikeout to walk ratio. They have said that he has got elite bat-to-ball skills, but his decision-making at the plate is what has been poor. That's kind of what has hindered him from taking that next step as he swings at a lot of bad pitches. But his bat-to-ball skills are very good. As of this season, right now, he's got 30 walks compared to 54 strikeouts in 70 games. Last year in 94 games, he had 46 walks compared to 80 strikeouts, and again, 94 games. And the year before that, he had 6 walks and 57 strikeouts in 58 games. So you've seen a big improvement in that side of things for Kevin Made. The whole question is can he start to hit consistently? Can he get more extra base hits? Because he's only got 3 home runs this season. He hit 10 last year, and that was a big step up for the kid. But even then, his numbers have kind of came back to earth as his slugging is still down. His on-base percentage is slightly up a bit, but his on-base numbers and really in general, his slugging hasn't been that great in my opinion. That is where Kevin Made will have to take the next step up. Because if this guy can hit around league average, the Nationals have found themselves quite a good prospect because Lindsey Crosby from Locked On MLB Prospect, this guy obviously knows his prospects. I texted him last night, and he did on today's show. He broke down both DJ Herz and Kevin Made in his podcast around the 20-minute mark. You'll want to check that out a little bit later on. But he said he might be our best defensive infielder in the minors right now. He's smooth at shortstop with the hands and transfer to play second base and a huge arm to play third base. Mechanically smooth swing, but with good bat speed and pitch recognition. But his swing decisions absolutely are not that great right now. That is what Lindsey Crosby had to say about him, and I trust him with all my prospects out there. So you'll want to check out that show of Locked On MLB Prospects. Now let's get into the big lefty, DJ Herz. And in my mind, this is the most intriguing prospect that we got of the two, Kevin Made and DJ Herz. DJ Herz is kind of the guy that I think the Nationals were going to get all along. They wanted this project kind of guy who's not only sort of close to Major League Baseball, but someone who can also kind of do two different things. And in one, Lindsey Crosby did point out that the fact that he's got one of the best changeups in minor league baseball as well. I even talked to Grant Paulson about this yesterday. He believes he probably has the best changeup in minor league baseball. That is legit. No matter what you look at it as, a big left-handed pitcher, someone who I believe is 6'2", 175 pounds, a big swirling changeup that MLB Pipeline has at a 65 grade. That is well above average. That is considered very good. Now, where he gets in trouble with and kind of what has hindered him from taking the next step into getting higher prospect rankings and really getting just more high leverage situations is his ability not to throw strikes at times. That is what has kind of held him back throughout his career as of just this season. He has 37 walks in 59 innings pitched. Last year, he had 70 walks in 95 innings pitched. The year before that, he had 44 walks in 81 innings pitched. The real problem was last year. As soon as he got called up to AA, it really was not good for him. But this season, he has actually looked pretty good. In 14 starts, he's got a 3.97 ERA. He struck out 80 batters in 59 innings pitched, and the batting average against him is .216. Those numbers aren't amazing, but what sticks out to me is that he gets swings and misses. He gets a lot of swings and misses. In fact, as you've seen, 80 strikeouts through 59 innings pitched this year, and he has 360 strikeouts over the course of 246 professional innings in the minor leagues. This is someone who has the ceiling to be a solid starter, but he also kind of has that floor to be a good reliever down the line. And as we know now, this Nationals team, they need relievers. He's in AA. He's going to go to AA Harrisburg. He probably could get called up to AAA if he were to find his command yet again. But he's only 22 years old, drafted out of high school, and again, the 8th round in 2019. A lot of people thought he would go to school. He did not. He signed with the Cubs for a little bit above slot, and that is what he has done so far. He's got a decent fastball, but again, the command is what has been off, as that is a 40 grade right now. That is really bad, if we're just being honest. The command is what is held back DJ Herz from taking that next step and really just from being in the majors right now, because you've seen the swing and miss potential. And again, through his first 2 seasons, he was good. Like, this was a legit pitching prospect out of high school that teams thought could be a high round pick after college. But as we know now, he's stuck through. He's been good. But the thing that has held him back is his command. He has to find a way to cut down on his walks and start getting some more outs in a simple way as that. Now, it may seem easier said than done with him. And if we're being honest, is this the best organization to really take advantage of tools like that? Someone who has the potential to be a top of the line kind of guy starter. He has the numbers for it. He's got the stuff for it. 4 pitches with a fastball, curveball, slider, and his changeup being his best pitch, and his fastball being his second best pitch. He has also got a nice third pitch with a slider. The curveball needs some work, but there's things that you can work with there. Even if it's just out of a relieving role, someone who sits in the low 90s, it's nothing crazy. It's something that this Nationals team has never seen before. But also, this is a project. And if the Nationals can hit on this, if they can find a way to fix his command, in which ways that we really haven't done in the past, if we're just being quite honest, then this is going to be a good trade return for a rental piece for Jeimer Candelario. Because let me reiterate this point. We were never going to be getting a team's top prospect. If a team gave up a top prospect for Candelario, good for us, but what a terrible organizational decision that would have been for whatever team would decide to do that. Obviously, that was never the case, and it wasn't the case in yesterday's trade. Mike Rizzo took the best deal out there. Both these guys are going to be lottery kind of guys, but don't take this for advantage. They're projects. It's going to take time. It's not going to click right away. And while some scouts say Kevin Made does have the highest ceiling amongst Cubs prospects, you could say that about a lot of guys. As we say here, Elijah Green, he's got one of the highest ceilings in this system. But ceilings do not translate into numbers. And we know that now because Elijah Green has struggled in low A Fredericksburg in his first professional season. And we've seen a ton of guys in the past who have those big high ceilings, like a Victor Robles, who has also struggled. So you just never really know until you know with prospects like this. You truly don't. Thank you guys for making Locked On Nationals your first listen. The Nationals play the Brewers tonight at 7:05 Eastern Time. You can catch every pitch of the Nationals' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Nationals there. Now let's get into some potential last-minute Nationals deadline deals as Lane Thomas and you know who, Kyle Finnegan, their names have been floating around. Will a trade happen by tonight's 6 o'clock deadline? I'll tell you guys about that next. And now we got to talk about Lane Thomas and Kyle Finnegan as the question is posed, will Lane Thomas get traded by this day's deadline? And to quickly rip it off, I don't think so. Because I think Mike Rizzo and this Nationals team, they do value Lane Thomas a lot higher than the major league clubs out there. Now, it could get a little interesting because I do believe a team would give up a decent prospect for him, but I don't think Mike Rizzo is just going to give up Lane Thomas, who's got 2.5 years left of control, who's been really good this year, who has flashed his 5 tools. Now, he's not a 5-tool player, but he has flashed those 5 tools, and he's been very good in this Nationals clubhouse. I don't think Mike Rizzo is just going to give him away for a lottery type of prospect the way that the Nationals did with Candelario. Again, the reason why we did that with Candelario is because he was a free agent after this year, and he's going to get paid by someone. Not in a big way, but more money than we're probably willing to dish him out at this moment in time. Lane Thomas has kind of always been this interesting trade piece that the Nationals could use. They could have used at last year's deadline, but it never really came into fruition. And at this moment in time, I just think it comes down to the fact that teams are going to be interested in Lane Thomas. I can guarantee you that. There are 29 teams in baseball that want players like Lane Thomas. But the matter of the fact is, Mike Rizzo has a vision for him. Is that being the 4th outfielder down the line for the Nationals? Maybe. Or is it just him being a starting outfielder, someone who has played really well defensively, especially as he leads the National League in outfield assists, and then offensively, he's been a well above average major league hitter this season. Slugging wise, getting on base, his strikeouts are way up, but who is it in 2023? So I just think of the fact that Lane Thomas is not a key trade piece for this Nationals team. It just, at this moment in time, from what we have all heard from the national beat reporters and all those people out there, is that the matter of the fact is that Mike Rizzo values Lane Thomas more than the other franchises do. Now, that could just be a smokescreen from other teams saying that we want Lane Thomas, but at this moment in time, there just hasn't been enough smoke for me around here to really do believe that Lane Thomas should be traded. Now to the other guy, Kyle Finnegan. Kyle Finnegan is one that, and honestly, I may be in the minority in this. If we don't trade Kyle Finnegan, I think it's kind of dumb, if I'm just being honest. At this moment, do you believe that Kyle Finnegan has reached his peak? Do you believe that Kyle Finnegan has kind of reached the max way that he could be? Is he really a closer for a major league team? Because in my opinion, he's not. But he's got good numbers. This guy has proven over the years that he's a consistently decent reliever. I just don't understand as to why the Nationals wouldn't trade him at this moment. And it all goes into the fact that he's got multiple years left of control, similar to Lane Thomas. And I don't think his value is going to get any higher than what it is right now because of that control. Teams could look at him, and again, I always pinpoint these teams like the Braves and the Dodgers and the Tampa Bay Rays, teams that are always in the mix for getting relievers like this. The reason why I kind of pinpoint those teams is because they could look at Kyle Finnegan and say, we can work on him, we could potentially make him into a closer. At this moment in time with the Nationals, it's just a trust factor. I don't believe this Nationals team could take Kyle Finnegan to that next level. Now, while Mike Rizzo and this development staff, they've done great in what Kyle Finnegan has done over the years. If you remember, he was signed kind of out of nowhere in that 2019-2020 offseason from the Oakland Athletics, never appeared in a major league game. Mike Rizzo and the Nationals took a flyer on him, signed him to a major league deal, and he was good in 2020. 2021, he was solid. 2022, it was a little rocky to begin with, but then in the second half of 2022 last year, he was great. And in this season, in the first half, in my opinion, there were a lot of downs, but there were also a lot of ups with him. He started off slow. He had his doors blown off him in that Tampa Bay Rays series, which inflated his ERA, gave up I believe, 6 runs in one inning at one moment in time. That always kind of inflated his ERA. And if you take away a few of those blow-ups, in which every reliever has a blow-up every now and then, every single reliever out there does. If you were to take away a few of those, then you would actually kind of see, oh, he's valuable. This guy does have the stuff. And I think at this moment in time, the Nationals should be taking calls on him. And in my mind, what kind of future does he have here in Washington, D.C. to keep you around? What kind of future does Kyle Finnegan have? Someone who's already in his 30s, someone you've already juiced out a ton of innings for, someone who has stayed healthy. What's the guarantee that in next year's deadline that he's going to be the same? What's the guarantee that he will take a step up and improve yet again? Because in my opinion, when you're in your 30s at this age already, this is kind of the time to trade those kind of guys away, especially for the Nationals, to which, yeah, you don't really have that much bullpen help. And even down in the farm system, you don't have a ton of pitchers that could help you in the bullpen. But you could get some guys back in return. You would never get a Mason Thompson back in a Daniel Hudson type of trade like in 2021. But the Nationals got to evaluate themselves and say, this guy doesn't really have a future here in Washington, D.C. So let's pull the plug now and let's get what we can get for him, because next year isn't guaranteed. You can't say that, oh, we'll trade him away next year and get even more value with him. The value right here will never be higher than what it is right now. He's in the same boat as Lane Thomas. So if you were to trade him, right now would be the time for Kyle Finnegan. So hopefully the Nationals take their calls on that, because I don't really see the point in doing anything else otherwise. The Nationals play the Brewers tonight at 7:05 Eastern Time. You can catch every pitch of the Nationals' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Nationals there. I'll catch you guys on the flip side. It's a trade deadline day, and please, Nationals, just don't do anything dumb. Just don't. I'll have you guys covered if there are any other moves. Go Nationals. Please, don't make us look foolish.